The champagne flute felt slick in my hand. A prop in a play I hadn't fully memorized the script for. The ballroom of the Pierre glowed. All crystal and gold leaf. A perfect New York City fantasy. My left hand, newly weighted with a 3-carat emerald-cut diamond, kept finding its way to Liam's arm, as if for proof. He was solid and warm in his tuxedo, his smile easy as he nodded at some cousin from Connecticut. I'd seen that smile charm investors, professors, and me. 5 years ago in a crowded Columbia library. Tonight, it felt like a shield. Nervous? His voice was low. For me alone. His thumb stroked the inside of my wrist, only about remembering which fork is for the inevitable assassination attempt. I murmured back, and he choked on a quiet laugh. The salad fork is the one on the left. The stabbing fork is brought out with dessert. I was about to retort when the air changed. It wasn't a temperature shift, but a pressure one. Victoria Anderson glided into our orbit, a vision in ivory Valentino. At 52, she looked a polished 40. Every blonde hair in a serene chignon, her smile a masterpiece of benevolent warmth. Darlings, she breathed, air kissing near my cheek. She smelled of gardenias and cold. Hard cash. The room is simply perfect. Liam, your father is so pleased. Thanks, Victoria, Liam said. His voice was pleasant, neutral. I'd learned to hear the careful flatness in it when he spoke to her. Her cornflower blue eyes, the exact shade of a poison dart frog, landed on me. And Nova, that dress is very bold. Such an interesting choice for an engagement party. Her gaze swept my form-fitting. Navy blue réalisation par dress. Not a gown, not bridal. A choice I'd made deliberately. A statement. I'm not a blank slate. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson, I said, meeting her eyes. I find interesting is always better than safe. A flicker. There and gone behind the placid blue. Her smile widened, showing perfect teeth. Please, we're practically family now. You must call me Victoria. I hesitated. It felt like stepping onto ice I knew was thin. Victoria, I said, testing the word. It tasted like perfume and poison. There, that's better. She patted my arm, her touch light and cold. Now, you must circulate. Liam, the Vander Woods are here. Nova, dear, why don't you come with me? I'll introduce you to some of the more substantial connections. The subtle dig was a masterclass. Substantial, as opposed to my own friends, journalists, artists, consultants that scattered, like colorful, irrelevant confetti among the monochrome old money. Liam's hand tightened on mine. She's fine with me. Victoria, we're a pair, like bookends. Oh, don't be a clinger. Liam, she needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet in this world. Victoria's laugh was a tinkling bell. I'm only trying to help. Daniel is so impressed with her independence. We must nurture it. That was the trap, laid with surgical precision. Refuse, and I'm the clinger, the insecure girl. Accept. And I'm walking into the lion's den alone. I squeezed Liam's hand back and let go. She's right. I should mingle. Save me from the hedge fund manager by the potted palm in 10 minutes? He searched my face, concern in his hazel eyes. 5, he promised. I followed Victoria's slender form through the crowd. She moved like a shark, effortless, creating a wake of nods and smiles. She stopped by a trio of women whose jewelry could have funded a small nation. Ladies, this is Nova, Liam's fiancée. Nova, this is Bitsy Houghton, Celine Vanderbilt, and Muffy Prescott. Charmed, Bitsy said, her eyes performing a full-body scan of me, pricing everything from my shoes to my ancestry. We've heard so much, Celine added, her tone suggesting what she'd heard wasn't good. An engagement. How sudden, Muffy chirped. Victoria, you must be thrilled to finally get a daughter. Victoria's sigh was a work of art, a masterpiece of nuanced suffering. Thrilled isn't the word I'd use. But when two young people are determined, what can one do? Daniel is quite taken. He sees a certain resilience in her. Of course, it's a different world than the one Liam was raised for. She turned that sympathetic smile on me. My dear, you must feel so overwhelmed. All these traditions, the prenuptial agreements alone are dreadfully complex, but necessary. Of course, given the disparity. The words were velvet-wrapped stones. Disparity. My father was a history professor at NYU. My mother ran a nonprofit for literacy. We were comfortable. We were not a Fifth Avenue apartment, a house in the Hamptons, and a stable of racehorses comfortable. I took a sip of champagne. Traditions are just peer pressure from dead people, and prenups are just business. Liam and I are good at business. We're better at partnership. The women blinked. Victoria's smile didn't slip, but it frost-burned the edges. How modern. We'll see how that philosophy holds up when the board asks uncomfortable questions about the future Mrs. Anderson's background. My background is a summa cum laude degree from Columbia, a senior consultant position at McKinsey at 27, and a family that loves me without requiring a spreadsheet to justify it. I kept my voice light, conversational. I'm sure the board will find that suitably terrifying. Bitsy choked on her caviar toast. Celine looked vaguely fascinated, as if watching a zoo animal do a trick. Muffy just seemed confused. Victoria's eyes went glacial. Confidence is so refreshing in the young, until it isn't. She leaned in, her gardenia scent cloying. Let me be clear, Nova, this party, this ring, this boy, they're on loan. This family has a way of spitting out things that don't belong. And you, my dear, with your sharp tongue and your sensible shoes, do not belong. You're a distraction. One Liam will outgrow, just like he outgrew his obsession with that grunge band and that unfortunate girl from Newport. A cold spike drove into my gut. The unfortunate girl was Chloe, Liam's first love. She died in a car crash senior year of high school. He rarely spoke of it. When he did, his face went hollow. I'd never heard Victoria mention her before. Be careful, Victoria, I said softly. All pretense of politeness gone. You're showing your seams. For a second, raw hatred flashed in her eyes, so Starkett stole my breath. Then the mask slid back, perfect and unblemished. Enjoy the champagne. Dear, it's Dom Perignon, 2004, a vintage you're unlikely to encounter again. She melted back into the crowd, leaving me with the three harpies who were now staring with undisguised interest. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I turned and walked, my heart hammering against my ribs. I found Liam near the bar, deep in conversation with his father. Daniel Anderson was a taller, older, grayer version of Liam, with the same sharp jaw and intelligent eyes. But where Liam's warmth was innate, Daniel's felt earned, reserved. He broke into a genuine smile when he saw me. Nova, there you are. Escaped the dragon. I see. He winked, pulling me into a one-armed hug. He'd always been kind to me, appreciative of my practical mind. As he called it, he was the reason this engagement party was happening at all. He'd overruled Victoria's suggestions of a small, family-only dinner, just doing recon. Daniel, your wife was giving me the full, you're not from here. Are you, tour? He chuckled, but it was strained. Victoria is protective of the family and its image. She'll come around. She just needs to see what I see, what Liam sees. He clapped his son on the shoulder. A fighter. We need fighters in this family. The dinner gong sounded. The orchestrated chaos of seating began. We were at the head table, Daniel at the center, Victoria to his right, Liam to his left, me next to Liam. Speeches droned. Liam's college friend, Mark, told an embarrassingly funny story about Liam attempting to cook ramen in a dorm microwave and setting off the fire alarm. My best friend, Maya, gave a sharp, loving toast about my terrifying competence and questionable taste in men. Laughter, genuine and warm, bubbled up at our end of the table. Then Daniel stood, tapping his glass. The room quieted. As many of you know, he began, his voice a confident rumble. I'm not a man given to public sentiment, but tonight, for my son and the remarkable woman he's chosen, I'll make an exception. He spoke of Liam's integrity, of my refreshing lack of pretense, of his hope for the future of the family and the company. It was generous, heartfelt. I saw Liam's throat work as he listened. I saw Victoria, smiling beatifically, her hand resting on Daniel's arm, her eyes as empty as a doll's. Daniel finished to applause. He Saturday, leaning over to kiss Victoria's cheek. She beamed, then stood, smoothing her skirt. The room's attention shifted to her, the queen holding court. What a beautiful sentiment. Darling, she purred. She picked up her champagne flute. To family, the one we're born into, and the one we acquire. A titter of laughter. My spine straightened. I've watched Liam grow from a sensitive boy into the man he is today. It hasn't always been an easy road. Her voice dipped, laden with shared suffering. But through every challenge, I've been there. A steady hand, a mother's heart. She placed a hand over her pearls. And now, he brings us Nova. Her eyes found me. They were no longer empty. They were full of calculated, gleaming malice. We are so interested to learn all about you, my dear, to welcome you, in time, as we learn to understand each other's ways. The subtext screamed in the silent room. You are a puzzle, a problem. You're not one of us. The toast hung there, a beautiful, venomous thing. People murmured. Glasses were raised half-heartedly. Liam's jaw was a hard line. Daniel was looking at his wife with a faint, puzzled frown. The formal part of the evening dissolved into drinking and dancing. Liam was pulled away by a group of his father's business associates. I stood near a towering floral arrangement, trying to recalibrate. Maya materialized at my side, handing me a fresh glass of water. Holy shit, Nova. The step monster is in top form tonight. That toast was a war crime, set to a violin solo. She's just getting started. I muttered, watching Victoria work the room. Her laughter like broken glass. You need to do the rounds. Sweeten the crowd after that. Maya advised. Start with the old man. He's on your side. She was right. I made my way to Daniel, who was in a quiet corner with his brother. He excused himself when he saw me. Nova, I wanted to apologize for Victoria. She's under a lot of pressure with the event. She wants everything to be perfect. It is perfect. Daniel, truly, thank you for all of this. I meant it. The animosity wasn't coming from him. He studied my face. You're good for him. He's less guarded. Since you came along, he used to come home from school, from college. So quiet. Victoria said it was just his personality. But I see him with you, and I think maybe it wasn't. My heart ached for him. For Liam. He's the best man I know. He patted my hand. Then, that's all that matters. Don't let the pageantry get to you. This, he gestured at the ballroom, is just noise. What you two are building, that's the signal. Feeling bolstered, I decided to complete the circuit. I found Victoria near the entrance to the terrace, holding court with a different, younger set. She saw me approach. Her smile tightened imperceptibly. I had my line ready, a peace offering, of sorts, a bridge. I stopped before her. The group fell silent, sensing drama. Victoria, I began, my voice clear. I just wanted to say again, thank you for hosting such a beautiful evening. Everything is exquisite. I paused, then added, hoping to inject a note of familial ease. And for the advice earlier, I'll try to remember it all. Aunt Victoria. The moment crystallized. The soft chatter of the group died. The aunt hung in the air, a tentative olive branch, a child's word offered to an adult who scared you. Victoria didn't move. She slowly lowered her champagne flute to a passing waiter's tray. The action was so deliberate, so final. It sucked the air from the space around us. She turned her full gaze on me. The benevolent mask was gone. What was left was cold, polished contempt. Her voice, when it came, wasn't the tinkling bell. It was dry ice, clear and burning, cutting through the background jazz, reaching every ear within 20 feet. Let's not pretend a familiarity that doesn't exist, shall we? The words were precise, surgical. You can drop the act, dear Aunt. A short, humorless laugh. I think not. I don't approve of this marriage. I never have, and I certainly do not, and will not, consider you family. Silence. A deep, ringing, absolute silence that swallowed the music. The clinking glasses, the very air. 50 faces swiveled to stare. I felt the blood drain from my own. A cold wash of humiliation, so profound my vision tunneled. I was 8 years old again, standing in the cafeteria with my homemade lunch, being told it smelled weird. Then, a presence at my side. Liam. I hadn't seen him approach. He stood shoulder to shoulder with me, his body a solid wall of heat against the sudden chill. He was looking at his stepmother, his face unreadable. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2. A torturous public eternity. He spoke. His voice was calm, flat, and carried just as far as hers had. Then we won't force it. He reached for my hand, lacing his fingers tightly through my icy ones. He looked from Victoria stunned, suddenly uncertain face to the rapt, horrified crowd. From today, Liam announced, the words falling like stones into the silent room. You won't be Aunt Victoria. You'll be MS Hawthorne to Nova, and we'll treat you with the exact same courtesy and closeness you've just demanded. He gave a small, sharp nod, a period at the end of a sentence. As the distant relative you insist on being, consider it done. The silence shattered into a cacophony of gasps, murmurs, a few choked sounds of disbelief. Victoria's perfectly composed face underwent a seismic collapse. The color leached from it, leaving 2 spots of high, furious red on her cheeks. Her mouth opened, then closed, fish-like. The calculated cruelty had been met not with tears or flight, but with a dispassionate, public disowning. Liam. Daniel's voice boomed across the room, thick with shock and anger. He strode over, his face dark. What in God's name is the matter with you? Apologize to your mother this instant. She's not my mother, Liam said, the calm terrifying in its absoluteness. And she just made that abundantly clear to my fiancé, in front of everyone we know. There's nothing to apologize for. We're simply respecting her wishes. You insolent, ungrateful, Daniel sputtered, caught between fury at his son and the dawning, uncomfortable realization of what his wife had just done. He looked at Victoria, who had now summoned tears, perfect crystal droplets tracking through her powder. Daniel, I only meant, she whispered, a hand fluttering to her throat. I was overwhelmed, the pressure. I just want what's best. What's best is not publicly humiliating the woman I'm going to marry. Liam finished for her, his voice cutting through her performance. He looked at his father, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor, a raw pain. You weren't listening. Dad, you never are when she's in the room. He turned, keeping my hand locked in his. We're leaving. We walked out of the ballroom, through the gauntlet of stunned faces, the weight of 100 stares on our backs. The last thing I heard was Victoria's sobbing gasp and Daniel's furious, confused voice trying to soothe her. The heavy doors of the Pierre shut behind us, muting the chaos. The cold night air hit me like a slap. A valet, eyes wide, scurried to get the car. We didn't speak until we were in the back of the town car, the partition up, the glittering fortress of the hotel shrinking behind us. I was shaking, from rage, from humiliation, from the aftershock. Liam, I started, my voice trembling. Don't, he said, the word ragged. He pulled me into his arms, his face buried in my hair. Don't you dare apologize. Don't you even think it. He held me so tightly I could feel his heart hammering against mine. I've been waiting 20 years for an excuse to do that. You just in front of everyone. The magnitude of it was only now crashing down. The social nuclear option. She declared war. Nova. In the most public way possible. I just accepted the terms. He pulled back, his hands cupping my face. In the dim light from the street lamps, his eyes were fierce. You are my family. She is a legal relation. That's it. It ends tonight. The car wound its way downtown to our Tribeca loft. The silence inside was different now, charged, vibrating with the fallout of what had just happened. Upstairs, I towed off my heels, the expensive shoes feeling suddenly ridiculous. Liam poured 2 generous glasses of bourbon, neat, and handed me one. We stood in the dark living room, looking out at the necklace of lights on the Brooklyn Bridge. She's hated me from the day I was born, he said finally, his voice quiet in the dark. No, that's not right. She was indifferent to me until my mom died. Then I became the obstacle. He took a long swallow of bourbon. My M.O.M. Why real mom that was sick for a long time. Cancer. She was soft, kind, nothing like Victoria. She died when I was 7. 6 months later, Dad brought Victoria home, said I needed a mother. Ethan was 4. Her son, Goo, blonde, looked like a little angel. He was silent for a moment, gathering the memories. At first, it was just cold. Meals were silent unless Dad was there. Then it was the comparisons. Ethan's drawings were so creative, taped to the fridge. Mine were cluttered. Ethan learned to ride a bike. I was clumsy. It was subtle, always with a sweet smile for Dad. Then, when I was 10, I had a severe peanut allergy reaction at school. They called home. Victoria was out shopping. The housekeeper had to call an ambulance. I was in the hospital for 2 days. Dad was in Tokyo. Victoria came the second day with a stuffed animal. Told the nurses she'd been frantic with worry, but her charity luncheon had run long. The nurses thought she was a saint. I reached for his hand. It was clenched tight around his glass. When I was 13, the Times did a profile on Dad, the family man. Photo shoot at the house. Victoria had a speech written for me about how she'd saved me, been the mother I needed. I refused to read it. She cried. Dad was so angry. He said I was selfish, that I didn't appreciate all she'd done. I read the damn speech. He knocked back the rest of his drink. She framed the article. It's still in Dad's study. The pieces were clicking into a horrifying picture. The perfect, smiling stepmother. The quiet, difficult boy. The father, grieving and guilty, seeing only what was presented to him. And the business, the mistakes Dad mentioned. I asked gently. His laugh was short, bitter. There's a pattern. Every time I'm close to a big win at work, something goes wrong. Data gets misplaced. A client hears a rumor about my inexperience. A report I submitted has errors I don't remember making. Dad chalks it up to me being green, needing to prove myself. He tells me to listen to Victoria, that she has a keen eye for detail. I thought of the Henderson deal files I'd glimpsed on his laptop, the inconsistencies that had seemed like sloppy work. Now they looked like something else. Sabotage. She doesn't want you to succeed. I whispered. She wants me to fail. He corrected, his voice flat, just enough. Enough to look unstable, unreliable, so that when Dad finally steps back, the board, the family, they'll look at steady, reliable Ethan, her son, and she'll be the power behind the throne. The final piece of the engagement party's horror slid into place. It wasn't just that she didn't like me. I was a variable she hadn't accounted for. Someone from outside her system. Someone who loved Liam. Saw him clearly. and wasn't afraid of her. I was a threat. I was reinforcement for the enemy. I took his glass, set both ours down. I faced him, putting my hands on his chest, over the steady, strong beat of his heart. Okay, I said. He blinked. Okay, okay. She declared war. You accepted. That makes it our war. I met his eyes, letting him see the cold, clear certainty that had replaced my shock. The humiliation was gone, burned away by a colder, more useful fuel, rage. No more quiet suffering. No more taking the high road while she plants landmines on it. We play her game, but we play to win. A slow, real smile touched his lips for the first time all evening. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a soldier who just found his general. And how do we do that? I thought of Victoria's perfectly arranged face, her calculated tears, her poisoned words. I thought of boardrooms, of data, of patterns. My territory. We get proof, I said, my voice low and steady in the dark room. She's careful. She spent 20 years being careful, but she slipped tonight. In public, she showed her hand because she thought we only had a pair of twos. She doesn't know what we're holding. I stood on my toes and kissed him. A promise, a seal, the taste of bourbon and defiance. Starting tomorrow, I said against his lips. We learn everything there is to know about Victoria Hawthorne Anderson. Every charity board, every shell company, every helpful piece of advice she's ever given your father. We follow the money. We follow the lies. I pulled back, looking at the man I loved, at the pain and the resolve in his eyes. The engagement party was ashes. The perfect future was a battlefield. And then, I said, the words of vow in the quiet loft. We burn it all down. The silence in our loft the next morning was a physical thing. It wasn't peaceful. It was the pressurized quiet after an explosion, waiting for the secondary blast. My phone had buzzed incessantly until I'd turned it off at 3 a.m. Liam's was face down on the kitchen counter, a tiny, humming monument to the shitstorm. He was at the espresso machine, his back to me. The set of his shoulders was rigid. My father called 7 times. I poured orange juice, the simple action feeling surreal, and he's profoundly disappointed. He says I was disrespectful, that I humiliated Victoria, that I owe her a public apology. He turned, handing me a courte-do. His eyes were shadowed. He said her comment was taken out of context, that she was just overwhelmed with emotion, that I should have been the bigger person. The familiar, corrosive frustration bubbled up in my chest. Of course, she gets to launch a tactical nuke, and you're supposed to apologize for the fallout. That's the playbook. He took a long sip. Always has been. I react. I'm the problem. She provokes. She's the victim. My laptop was open on the island, an email from my managing director glaring from the screen. Nova, the Henderson deal analysis for Anderson Group is flagged. Discrepancies in the due diligence files you referenced. My office, 9 a.m. I pushed it toward Liam. Speaking of playbooks, look, he scanned the email, his frown deepening. Henderson, that was my deal. I brought it in. I ran the numbers. Victoria offered to help with the final presentation packaging. He made air quotes, the motion sharp with anger. The version the board saw had projected margins 15% lower than my originals. They said my numbers were aggressively optimistic. The deal was scaled back. Credit went to the team. Oversight credited to her prudent guidance. You kept your original files on a secure server, separate from the network she has access to. Send them to me, encrypted. Now, while he worked, I pulled up the internal portal for Sterling Consulting. The Henderson file was there, marked as final. I clicked through the financial models. The formulas were subtly altered, a chain of assumptions leading to that 15% shrinkage. It was skilled work, not a blatant hack job, but a careful, malicious tweak, the kind of thing that looked like an overzealous junior analyst's error. Not sabotage. Got it. Liam said. A file landed in my secure inbox. I split my screen. His original model on the left. The final board version on the right. It took 10 minutes. Here, I said, pointing. The customer acquisition cost. You projected a 5% decrease year over year based on the new marketing partnership. The final file has it increasing by 2%. No notation, no changed assumptions cited, just the number itself, altered. That's the main driver of the margin drop. Liam stared at the screens, a muscle in his jaw ticking. I never would have caught that in a board meeting, not with everyone staring at a slide. You'd have to be digging in the raw file, line by line, which no one does after the fact unless something goes wrong. And the deal didn't go wrong. It just underperformed your projections, making you look incompetent and her look cautious and wise. I leaned back, the pieces snapping into a chilling pattern. It's not about tanking the company. It's about chipping away at you, death by 1,000 paper cuts, enough to make you seem unreliable. My phone, turned back on, buzzed with a new email, not from work. The sender was ethan.anderson.personal@gmail.com. The subject line, I'm sorry. I showed Liam. He went very still. Don't. We have to talk to him. He's her son, Nova. He emailed me, not you. I opened it, Nova. Last night was a disaster. I'm sorry you had to go through that. My mother, she's complicated. She has a way of getting what she wants. It's not always pretty. I'd like to talk, explain some things. Are you free for coffee today? Somewhere discreet. Ethan. It's a trap, Liam said flatly. He's her errand boy. Always has been. Or he's a 22-year-old kid who grew up in a gilded cage with a puppet master for a mother and saw something ugly last night. I was already typing a reply, naming a busy Starbucks in Grand Central, a place with zero intimacy, maximum witnesses. We need intel. Liam, he's inside the castle walls. Even if it's a trap, knowing the bait tells us what they're fishing for. My meeting with Peter Sterling, my MD, was a masterclass in corporate ass covering. Nova. The Anderson Group is a flagship client. This drama at the engagement party is all over page 6. Then I get a concerned call from Victoria Anderson herself, a close personal friend of the senior partners, questioning the integrity of the data in our reports that her stepson is relying on. What the hell is going on? I kept my face neutral. Peter, the data in my reports is sourced directly from the materials the Anderson MA team provided. If there's an issue with the underlying data, that's an internal Anderson problem, not a Sterling one. My analysis is sound based on the inputs I was given. He steepled his fingers. She implied you might be over-advocating for Liam's positions, letting personal feelings cloud professional judgment. I almost laughed. My professional judgment is telling me there's a discrepancy between the deal's initial potential and the final numbers presented to the board. I'd be happy to walk you, or any partner, through a line-by-line comparison of the original financial model and the finalized one. The changes are material, and they don't appear to be driven by new market data. They look manual. He studied me. I'd made it about the work. The data. I'd given him a shield. Due diligence. He could go to the partners and say he'd investigated, found no fault with his consultant, and shifted the focus to the client's internal processes. A safe, corporate answer. Do that, he said finally. Prepare the comparison, for internal eyes only. And Nova? For God's sake, keep your personal life off the front page. It's bad for business. Understood. I left, not with a reprimand, but with a mandate. Prepare the comparison that I had my cover. Grand Central at noon was a river of humanity. I spotted Ethan at a corner table. 2 coffees already there. He looked younger than he had at the party, all nervous energy in a hoodie and jeans. He stood up as I approached. Nova, thanks for coming. Ethan, Saturday leaving the coffee untouched. You said you wanted to explain. He ran a hand through his floppy blonde hair. So like Victoria's in color, but lacking its predatory sheen. Look, about last night, that was brutal. I'm sorry. That's not. She's not always like that. Just when she's in front of an audience, humiliating her future daughter-in-law. He flinched. She's under a lot of pressure. From my dad, from the board, from everything. She feels threatened. By me? By you and Liam. Together. You're a unit. She's used to being the one in control. Of everything. Of Dad. Of the company narrative. Of me. The last part was a whisper. He looked down at his coffee. She has this vision. For the family. For the company. Liam was never part of it. Not really. He was the heir apparent. The obstacle. Her job, in her mind, was to manage that. To soften his edges. Make sure the transition, when it happens, is smooth. For everyone. The euphemisms were nauseating. By making him look incompetent. His head snapped up. What? No. By guiding him. Offering advice. Ethan, I've seen the Henderson deal files. The numbers were changed between Liam's draft and the board presentation. They made him look bad. Do you know anything about that? His face paled. He looked genuinely shocked. Then the shock was quickly buried under a layer of practiced blandness. I'm not really involved in that side of things. I'm in the design department. UI/UX stuff. But you hear things. He shifted in his seat. People talk. They say, Liam's got great ideas, but sometimes the execution is shaky. That mom helps stabilize things. By altering his work? I didn't say that. His voice rose, and he glanced around, lowering it. I don't know anything about altered files. I just know she wants what's best for the company. And Liam, he's impulsive. Like last night. That's what she's afraid of. That he'll do something that hurts the family's reputation. Or the business. I leaned forward. Why are you really here? Ethan? To warn me off? To deliver a message? No. God, no. He looked miserable. I'm here because I'm tired. I'm tired of the performances. The constant curation. I saw your face last night. You weren't playing a part. You were just you. And Liam stood up to her. I've never seen anyone do that and not immediately get destroyed. He met my eyes, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the trapped kid Liam had described. I guess I just wanted to say, be careful. She doesn't lose. And you? What do you want? Ethan, do you want to run the company? The question seemed to startle him. I don't know. It's what's expected. It's what she's prepared me for my whole life. But the way she does it, the things. He stopped himself, his internal censor slamming down. Just be careful. There's a gala next week. For the museum. She's planning something. A grand gesture of reconciliation. It won't be. It's a trap. Don't trust it. He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back. I have to go. Ethan, I said. He paused. If you ever want to talk, really talk, without the performances, you know where to find me. He gave a jerky nod and disappeared into the crowd. I sat for a moment, processing. Was it a performance? A double bluff? Or was he a potential crack in Victoria's armor? Either way, he'd given me one concrete thing. A warning about the gala. That evening, Liam and I compared notes. I told him about Ethan. Don't, he said again, but with less heat. He's a mess, but he's her mess. He won't go against her. He just did. He warned me. Or she told him to warn you. To make you paranoid. To throw you off balance before this gala. He sighed. It doesn't matter. We have a bigger problem. Or an opportunity. He pulled up an email on his phone. It was from his father, with Victoria copied. Liam, your mother and I have spoken at length. The events of Saturday were unfortunate and painful for everyone. Family is more important than pride. We are having a small dinner at the apartment on Friday to clear the air. I expect you and Nova to be there. 8 p.m. We will move forward from this. As a family. Dad, a command performance. I said, the grand gesture Ethan mentioned. In private, though not public. Yet, I said, thinking, what's Friday? The museum gala is next Thursday. This is the warm-up, the private apology, the reconciliation, so that at the public gala, we can all present a united, happy family front. She gets to be the magnanimous peacemaker, and we look like petulant children if we refuse to play along. Liam's phone buzzed. Another email. This one was from Victoria. To him only. Liam, your father is deeply hurt. I am willing to overlook the shocking disrespect you showed me. For his sake, for the family's sake. The dinner is a chance for Nova to apologize properly, and for us to begin mending this. I suggest you encourage her to be contrite. I will do my part to welcome her, provided she demonstrates she understands the expectations of this family. Think of your future, darling. All of it is so fragile. Victoria, it's a threat, I said, reading over his shoulder. All of it is so fragile. Your position at the company, our standing with your dad, it's always a threat with her, wrapped in concern. He put the phone down, a hard glint in his eye. So, we go to the dinner. We go to the dinner. I agreed. We play the game. For now. And how do we play it? I smiled, a thought forming. We give her exactly what she wants. A contrite Nova, a humbled Liam. We let her have her little victory. We let her think the public scene shook us, that we're falling in line. I took his hand, while you, my love, are going to do something very out of character. You're going to ask your stepmother for advice. He stared at me. You've lost your mind. Hear me out. You have a deal coming up. The TechVantage acquisition. It's big. It's complex. You go to her. Tell her you're rattled by the Henderson missteps, that you want her oversight. You want her to stabilize things. As Ethan put it, you give her the files, the real files, but you also keep a separate, encrypted, date-stamped copy of every version. We let her do her worst. We document every improvement she makes. Understanding dawned on his face, followed by a fierce grin. We use the TechVantage deal as the honeypot. She can't resist. She'll sabotage it to make me look bad, just like Henderson, and we'll have a step-by-step record, not of vague whispers or changed numbers in old deals, but of active, ongoing interference. We catch her in the act. Liam, and then we don't take it to your dad. Not yet. Then who? The board has an audit committee, right? Led by Arthur Brantley. The one director your dad says is a pain in the ass because he asks too many questions. Liam's grin widened. Artur hates Victoria, thinks she's a distraction, calls her the interior decorator behind her back. Perfect. We take the evidence to him. Let him ask the questions. It comes from inside the board, not from the disgruntled stepson. It has legitimacy. We spent the next hour crafting the approach. Liam would be humble, concerned, even slightly defeated. He'd frame it as wanting to learn from her experience, to avoid another Henderson. He'd give her access, make her feel in control, secure. The plan set. A different kind of tension filled the loft. It was no longer the anxious quiet of aftermath, but the charged focus before a mission. We were no longer just defending. We were laying a trap. Friday arrived. I wore a simple black dress, armor in its own way. Liam wore a suit, his face a careful mask of subdued tension. The drive to the Fifth Avenue apartment was silent. Victoria answered the door herself. She was dressed in cashmere separates, the picture of understated elegance. Her smile was soft, regretful. Liam, Nova, thank you for coming. Please, come in. The apartment was a museum of quiet wealth. Daniel emerged from his study, his face stern but relieved. Good, you're here. Dinner was a surreal pantomime. The conversation was stilted, circling the weather, the awful traffic. Victoria served the salad herself, playing the gracious, wounded hostess. Daniel tells me you're working on the TechVantage acquisition. Liam, she said, passing the bread basket. A complex one. So much due diligence. Here it was. Liam took a breath, putting down his fork. Actually, Victoria, I wanted to talk to you about that. He sounded tired, earnest. After everything and after Henderson, I've been doing some thinking. Maybe I've been resistant to guidance. Dad's always said you have a keen eye. Victoria's eyes sharpened, just for a fraction of a second, before melting into maternal concern. Oh, Liam, we all make missteps. It's part of growth. I'd appreciate it. He plowed on, looking at his plate. If you'd be willing to look over the preliminary packages before I take them to the team. A second set of eyes from someone with your experience. The words seemed to cost him. They were perfect. Daniel beamed, the tension visibly draining from him. Now, that's more like it. A mature approach. Victoria's insights are invaluable. Isn't this wonderful? Victoria, a fresh start. Victoria placed a gentle hand over Liam's on the table. It took everything I had not to flinch. Of course, darling, I'd be happy to help. It's all I've ever wanted. To help you succeed. Her gaze flicked to me, and the triumph in them was a physical blow. She'd won. The rebellious son was back in the fold, begging for her help. And I, the disruptive influence, was sitting there, silent and chastened. Nova, Daniel said, turning his warm smile on me. I'm glad you two could work this out. Family is everything. I made my face soft, repentant. I'm so sorry for my part in the misunderstanding. Daniel, Victoria, I forced the name out, making it sound respectful. The pressure of the engagement. It's all so new. I hope we can start over. Victoria's smile was beatific. All is forgiven. Dear, water under the bridge. She took a sip of wine. In fact, the museum gala is next Thursday. I'd be delighted if you'd both come as my personal guests. We can present a united front. Show the world the Andersons are stronger than gossip. And there it was. The trap, sprung with perfect elegance. Public redemption on her terms. We'd look like the grateful, wayward children she'd graciously taken back under her wing. We'd be honored, Liam said, his voice thick with an emotion only I knew was disgust, not gratitude. Later, in the car going home, he let out a long, shaky breath. God, I need a shower. That was vile. It was perfect, I said, the adrenaline finally hitting me. She took the bait. All of it. You were brilliant. I felt like I needed to burn my skin off. He started the engine. She'll have the TechVantage files by Monday. The trap is set. Now we wait, I said, looking out at the glittering city. And we get ready for the gala. Her big victory lap. He reached over, his hand finding mine. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. I confirmed, squeezing back. The war was no longer cold. The first move had been made, not with a shout in a ballroom, but with a whisper at a dinner table. The game was on. The trap was set. The quiet week that followed the awful dinner was the calm before the storm. Liam played his part perfectly. He sent Victoria the TechVantage files with a carefully worded email, asking for her experienced perspective to ensure nothing was overlooked. He copied his father. The subtext was clear. See, I'm being a team player. Her reply was a masterpiece of false benevolence. Of course, Liam, so proud of you for seeking guidance. I'll have notes to you by end of day, Wednesday. Meanwhile, I got to work. My internal review of the Henderson discrepancies for Sterling had given me a legitimate reason to dive into Anderson Group's recent partnership history. I started cross-referencing their public deals with the corporate registries of 3 offshore haunts, Delaware, the Caymans, and Luxembourg. It was tedious, mind-numbing work, until I found it, a Delaware LLC named Ethelred Holdings. It had been a minor vendor on 2 of Anderson Group's recent real estate developments to providing specialty landscaping consultation at rates that made even Park Avenue designers blush. The payment trails were clean, but the timing was interesting. Both payments were issued right after board meetings where Liam had presented aggressive expansion plans that were subsequently scaled back due to budgetary concerns. Ethelred's listed agent was a law firm known for setting up shell companies. I couldn't pierce the veil, not with my resources, but I could follow the other end. I pulled the personnel records for the two developments. The project manager for both was a guy named Carl Resnick. A quick LinkedIn search showed he'd been hired at Anderson 5 years ago. His previous job? Operations manager at a boutique landscaping firm in Connecticut that went under. A firm whose major investor, according to a buried local business journal article, was one Victoria Hawthorne, before she became Victoria Anderson. Bingo! It was a siphon, a small, clever one. She'd create a shell company, staff a project with a loyalist, overpay for services, and funnel the excess back to herself. It wasn't enough to cripple the company, but it was a steady, untraceable income stream, and it served a dual purpose. It inflated project costs, making Liam's more efficient proposals look naive and unrealistic. I compiled the links to the LLC, the overpayments, the connected employee, her prior investment. It was circumstantial, a map of dots waiting for a line to be drawn. I needed the bank statements to draw that line. Those I couldn't get. I brought it to Liam that night. We sat at our kitchen island, the glow of my laptop illuminating the printouts. Carl Resnick, Liam said, staring at the name. I know him. Unassuming guy. Always agreed with Victoria in meetings. I thought he was just a suck-up. He's her plant, and Ethelred Holdings is her piggy bank. I pointed to the payment amounts. This is small time, but it's a proof of concept. If she's doing it here, she's doing it elsewhere. We just need to find the bigger pipes. Liam ran a hand through his hair. My dad trusts her with the charitable foundation, the family trusts. There's so many places to hide. We'll find them, I said. But first, we see what she does with TechVantage. That's the active play. This, I tapped the papers, is the backstop. Wednesday came. Victoria's notes on the TechVantage deal arrived in Liam's inbox at 4:55 p.m. The attached document was a thing of beauty. Track changes was on, a riot of red edits and comment bubbles. She'd suggested diluting the equity offer by 20%, citing market volatility. She'd flagged the projected synergy savings as wildly optimistic and proposed a more conservative, halved figure. She'd inserted a clause about a 3-year earnout for the TechVantage founders, which would effectively neuter Liam's ability to integrate them quickly. Every change was a masterstroke. Individually, they looked prudent, careful. Together, they gutted the deal's strategic appeal and profitability. If Liam presented this version, the board would reject it as a bad deal. If he presented his original version, she could claim he'd ignored her wise counsel and set him up for failure when the risky deal inevitably hit bumps. Liam stared at the screen, a cold smile on his face. There it is, the knife, very carefully placed. We take it all, I said, leaning over his shoulder. We accept every change. We thank her profusely. We present this exact version to the board. And when it's a shit deal, we let her own it. You present it, but you present it as the refined proposal, incorporating invaluable guidance from Victoria and the Executive Review Committee. You tie her name to every single number. You make her a co-author of this turkey. We spent the evening crafting the response. Liam's email was a work of art. Victoria, these insights are incredible. You've spotted risks I completely missed. I've incorporated all your suggestions. I'll be presenting this strengthened version to the board on Friday. Can't thank you enough for the mentorship. He hit send. The hook was set deep. The board meeting was Friday at 10 a.m. At 9:15, my phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Lunch, Victoria. 12:30 p.m. The grill room. No call, no email. A calendar invite sent to me, Liam, and her assistant. A summons. I showed Liam the victory lap before the battle. Don't go, he said, straightening his tie. The boardroom was on the 40th floor. We were in his office on 38. And give her an excuse to play the rejected peacemaker? No. I'll go. I'll listen. I'll record the whole thing on my phone. He pulled me in for a hard, quick kiss. For luck. We make our own luck, I said, and headed for the elevators. The grill room was all dark wood and power lunches. Victoria was already seated, a queen at her table. She didn't stand as I approached. Nova, so glad you could make it. Her smile was thin. I ordered for you. The salmon. It's safe. I sat. To what do I owe the pleasure? Victoria, can't a mother want to connect with her future daughter-in-law? After our fresh start, she took a sip of ice water. I saw Liam incorporated my notes on the TechVantage deal. I'm so pleased he's finally being receptive. He values your experience. I said, my voice neutral, as he should. The board will see that today. A more tempered Liam is what the company needs. What Daniel needs. She leaned forward. This is the world you're marrying into. My dear, it requires nuance, subtlety. It's not a university debate club. Raw ambition needs to be shaped, directed, or it becomes a liability. Is that what Liam is? A liability? He has potential, but it's buried under a great deal of emotional residue. From his childhood, his mother's passing was so hard on him, made him distrustful, combative. She sighed, a practiced sound of regret. I've tried, for Daniel's sake, to smooth those edges, to make him presentable. But you encourage his worst instincts. That little display at your engagement party, that was you. I know it was. He would never be so publicly cruel without your influence. I let her talk. I cut a piece of the salmon she'd ordered. It was bland. You come from a very different world. Nova, a charming world. I'm sure. But here, appearances are everything. Reputation is currency. And you are spending Liam's recklessly. This feud you're encouraging him in? It will only end with him losing everything his father has built. Is that what you want? I put my fork down. What I want is for the man I love to be judged on his work, not undermined by it. Her eyes turned to chips of blue ice. You think you see things so clearly. You're a child playing with matches in a room full of gasoline. My advice to you, for your own good, is to step aside. Encourage Liam to take a sabbatical, travel, find himself, away from the pressures here. It would be the best thing for everyone, including Ethan, a flicker. Ethan is a gentle soul. He's not suited for the cut and thrust, but with the right guidance, he could provide stable, dignified leadership, and you'd be the guidance. Someone has to think of the company's future, not just their own passions. She wiped her mouth with a linen napkin. The gesture final. The board meeting starts soon. I should go. Think about what I've said. Nova, the choices you make now will determine what future you have, if any. She left me with the check. I paid it, left a cash tip, and walked out into the bright, cold day. My phone, set to record in my pocket, had captured every word. It wasn't a confession, but it was a map of her mind, and it was chilling. At 2 p.m., my phone lit up with Liam's name. Well, I answered. It was a fucking masterpiece, he said, his voice buzzing with adrenaline. I presented her version, called it the Anderson Hawthorne Revised Proposal. I praised her foresight. I talked about prudent stewardship. The board ate it up. Old man Brantley kept frowning at the numbers. But the others, they loved it. They love her. They see her as the sensible counterweight to my dad's big swings and my, what did they call it once? Unbridled enthusiasm. And Victoria, she sat there with this serene smile, nodding along like a proud teacher, until Brantley started asking questions. Why the drastic reduction in synergy targets? Where's the data to support this diluted equity offer? This earnout structure seems designed to kill morale. He picked it apart, and every time, I'd say, that's an excellent question. Arthur, Victoria, could you speak to the rationale? It was a key part of your review. He laughed, a short, sharp sound. You could see the panic in her eyes. She had to defend the very changes she'd made to sabotage me. She stumbled, gave generic answers about market uncertainty and protecting shareholder value. Brantley wasn't buying it. Dad was getting confused. The mood in the room shifted. It wasn't a slam dunk anymore. They tabled the vote, asked for a revised analysis, so she's tied to a weak deal. And a skeptical board member is asking questions she can't answer. I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Phase 1, complete. Phase 2 starts now. Liam said, I'm going to my dad, right now, to discuss Brantley's concerns, to ask for his advice on how to salvage the deal. I'm going to walk him through her changes, line by line, and ask him, innocently, if he thinks they're too conservative, if he thinks we're leaving too much money on the table. Get him questioning her judgment, not her motives. Not yet, just her judgment. Exactly. I'll call you after. I hung up, a surge of triumph cutting through the lingering disgust from my lunch. We were on the offensive. We had her reacting. The package arrived at 6 p.m. by special courier. No return address. A flat, rigid envelope. I opened it with a sense of dread. Inside was a single, glossy 8 by 10 photograph. Me, at 19, wearing a tight black tank top and shorts, holding a tray of drinks. The backdrop was sticky floors and neon lights. The Rusty Nail, a dive bar in Cambridge where I'd worked for 2 semesters to pay for books. I looked tired, young, and utterly ordinary. A note was paper-clipped to it, typed on plain paper. He'll leave when he knows who you really are. A gold-digging bartender from the wrong side of the tracks. Does Daniel know his precious future daughter-in-law served $3 well drinks to frat boys? I'll make sure he does. Leave now, and I'll keep this our little secret. It was so pathetic, so transparent, that I almost laughed. Almost. The intent was clear. Shame, humiliation, a threat to expose my common past to Daniel's snobbish world. Instead of the fury or fear she wanted, I felt a cold, clear certainty. This was the move of someone who was scared, who was running out of clean, corporate ways to hit us, who was resorting to high, school bully tactics. I took the photo, walked to our living room, and taped it to the center of the large, expensive mirror above the fireplace. A piece of my history, staring back at me, a badge of honor. When Liam came home an hour later, exhausted but energized from his talk with his father, he's confused. Nova, he said her suggestions seemed uncharacteristically risk-averse. He stopped short, staring at the photo. What the hell is that? A gift from your stepmother, or her minion. I told him about the note. His face darkened with rage. I'm calling my father right now. This is... No, I said, stopping him. We don't call. We don't react. Look at it. Liam, look at me. I'm 19. I'm working my way through an Ivy League school. I'm paying my own way. There's nothing to be ashamed of here. Everything she thinks is a weakness that my family, my past, my job.is what made me. It's why I can see through her. It's why I'm not afraid of her. I walked to the mirror, touched the edge of the photo. She sent this to scare me, to make me feel small. So I'm putting it right here, where I can see it every day, to remember what we're fighting for, and who we're fighting against. Liam came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. We looked at our reflection, him in his tailored suit, me in my sleek apartment, and the grinning, tired girl in the dive bar between us. You're incredible, he whispered. No, I said, meeting his eyes in the glass. I'm just getting started. She wants a war of dirty secrets? Fine, but she should remember something. I turned in his arms. She's the one with everything to hide. We're just getting started digging. The Metropolitan Museum Gala was the social battlefield Victoria had chosen, and she dressed for war. Her gown, was a liquid column of silver, worth more than my first car. She held Daniel's arm, a vision of serene, wifely devotion, smiling graciously at the paparazzi who shouted her name. We arrived separately, Liam and I, a strategic decision. Let her have her grand entrance. Our job was infiltration. The theme was Gilded Age, and the irony was thick enough to choke on. Millionaires in tuxedos and diamonds, pretending for a night to be old money aristocracy. I wore a simple, severe black gown, my armor. Liam looked devastatingly handsome and tense beside me. Remember the plan, I murmured, as we crossed the threshold into the cacophony of the museum's Temple of Dender. We smile, we nod, we're the chastened, grateful couple. We let her think she's won the war. I'd rather have a root canal, Liam muttered, but fixed a polite smile on his face. Victoria spotted us instantly. Her eyes, from across the room, were like laser sights. She whispered something to Daniel, who looked over and gave a relieved, paternal wave. She began gliding toward us, a shark in silver silk, trailing a cloud of gardenia and condescension. Darlings, she exclaimed, air-kissing near our cheeks. Her voice was a stage whisper, meant to be overheard. You came. I'm so glad. Daniel, look, our family. Whole again. Daniel clasped Liam's shoulder, his relief palpable. Good to see you both. Let's put all that unpleasantness behind us. Of course. Dad, Liam said, his voice carefully modulated, a little subdued. Perfect. Victoria's hand, cold and light, rested on my arm. Nova, that dress is striking. So bold to wear such a severe color to such a vibrant event. Her gaze swept over me, noting the lack of jewels, the simple styling, a dismissal. Come, let's get a drink. I have so many people who are dying to meet you properly. It was a trap, and I walked into it willingly. For the next hour, Victoria paraded me before a curated selection of New York's most vicious blue bloods. Each introduction was a masterpiece of subtle defamation. This is Nova, Liam's fiancée. She's in consulting. Can you imagine? So modern. Her people are in academia. Such a different world. We're just thrilled Liam has found someone so driven. I smiled. I nodded. I shook hands with women whose smiles didn't reach their eyes and men who assessed my net worth with a glance. I played my part, the polite, slightly out-of-her-depth girl, grateful for the great lady's attention. The first accident happened as a waiter passed with champagne. His foot seemed to catch on the impossibly smooth floor. The flute tipped. A waterfall of Veuve Clicquot cascading down the front of my black dress. Gasps. The waiter stammered apologies. Victoria was there in an instant, clutching my arm with false sympathy. Oh, you poor dear. How clumsy. Don't worry, darling. We'll get you cleaned up. The ladies' lounge has a wonderful attendant. She steered me away from the crowd, her grip like steel, in the relative quiet of the hallway. Her concern vanished. A word of advice. Dear, black shows everything, she said, her voice a venomous purr, especially when you're out of your depth. Before I could reply, she was gone, melting back into the party. I blotted the dress with paper towels. It was fine, a minor skirmish. She'd drawn first blood, but it was superficial. I returned to the party. Liam was deep in conversation with Arthur Brantley, the board member. I saw him gesture, his face serious. Good. He was planting seeds. The second attack came just before dinner was announced. I felt a sudden, sharp tug at my back, a ripping sound. The delicate seam at the side of my dress gave way, a 6-inch gash. I whirled around, clutching the fabric. A society matron I'd been introduced to minutes before, a friend of Victoria's named Bitsy, stood there, a pair of small, sharp sewing scissors half hidden in her beaded clutch. Oh, my heavens! Bitsy trilled, her eyes wide with false shock. Your dress! It must have caught on my bracelet. How dreadful! Victoria, dear, come help. Victoria materialized. Tisketi, another mishap. You really are having a run of bad luck. Nova, it's almost as if the night itself is against you. Her eyes gleamed. Come, let's get you pinned. We can't have you falling apart at the seams in front of everyone. In a small antechamber, a maid produced a safety pin. Victoria didn't help. She watched as I struggled to pin the fabric closed from an awkward angle. You see, she said softly, conversationally, this is what happens when you try to wear something that isn't made for you. The structure isn't there. The support, it looks fine on the hanger, but under pressure, it just comes apart. I finally got the pin fastened. I turned to face her. I guess it's a good thing I'm not just a dress. Then, I'm harder to break than I look. Her smile was icy. We'll see. Dinner was a protracted form of torture. We were seated at Victoria's table. Of course. The conversation was a minefield of passive aggression, which she navigated with the grace of a prima ballerina. She held court, telling anecdotes that subtly highlighted Liam's childhood missteps and her own saintly patience. Liam's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Then came the speeches. The museum director droned on. Then Daniel was called up. He gave a warm, generous speech about the importance of art, of family, of legacy. Then he smiled, looking at our table. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how happy I am to see my family here tonight. Whole and happy. Liam, Nova, stand up. Let everyone see you. We stood, forced smiles on our faces. The room offered polite applause. As we sat, Victoria leaned over, her lips near my ear. Her whisper was a snake's hiss, meant only for me. Enjoy your moment in the spotlight. Dear, it's the last one you'll get. By this time next week, everyone here will know the truth about you. That photo was just a preview. I have the whole album. I froze. The photo, the threat. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me tonight. She was setting the stage for a bigger, more public takedown. Before I could respond, Daniel was speaking again. And of course, none of this, the museum, this night, the stability of our family, that would be possible without my rock. My guiding light. Victoria, my love, come up here. Beaming. Victoria rose and floated to the podium. She kissed Daniel's cheek, then turned to the mic a picture of elegant humility. Thank you, darling, and thank you all for being here. Philanthropy, family, these are the pillars of our lives. And sometimes, family means opening your heart to new people, new perspectives. Her eyes found me, and her smile turned saccharine. Even when those perspectives are challenging, it's a journey of acceptance, of choosing to see the best in people, even when they show you their worst. The room murmured, a wave of sympathetic admiration for her magnanimity. She was publicly forgiving the poor, difficult girl her son had brought home. I saw Daniel nodding, his eyes moist. Liam's hand was a vice on my knee under the table, and in that spirit, Victoria continued, her voice dripping with faux emotion. I wanted to make a special announcement tonight, a new initiative from the Anderson Family Foundation. We're establishing a scholarship in the name of my late, beloved mother, for underprivileged young women from unconventional backgrounds, to help them gain the skills and refinement needed to navigate more demanding social environments. We'll call it the Polishing Diamonds Fund. The applause was thunderous. She'd done it, in front of 500 people. She'd framed me as her charity case, a diamond in the rough she was so graciously polishing. My face burned. I was a prop in her virtuous narrative. I stood up. The movement was smooth, deliberate. The table quieted. All eyes swung to me. Liam looked up, startled. Victoria at the podium, her smile faltering for a microsecond. I picked up my water glass. I didn't look at her. I looked at Daniel, at the concerned confusion on his face. I let my own eyes fill with what looked like emotion, gratitude, humility. I raised my glass. To Victoria, I said, my voice clear and carrying in the sudden quiet. For her, breathtaking generosity. And for reminding us all tonight that true strength isn't in tearing people down. I paused, letting my gaze sweep the room before landing back on her, but in having the courage to stand by them, even when it's hard, even when they're not what you expected. Thank you for the lesson. I took a sip of water. The room erupted in applause again, louder this time. They thought I was being gracious, thanking my benefactor. They saw a humble girl rising above. They didn't see the dagger in the words. True strength isn't in tearing people down. They didn't see the challenge, even when they're not what you expected. Daniel was beaming, misty-eyed. Liam looked at me with sheer, unadulterated awe. Victoria's smile was frozen, a rictus of rage. She'd handed me a noose, and I'd used it to hang a medal around my own neck. I'd stolen her moment, reframed it, and come out looking like the bigger person. She left the podium to polite applause, but the energy had shifted. The rest of the evening, people came up to me to compliment my poise, my speech. Victoria watched from the sidelines, her silver gown seeming to leech all the light from around her. Later, as we were retrieving our coats, a figure detached itself from the shadows near the coat check. Ethan. He looked paler than usual, his hands shoved in his pockets. Ethan. Liam said, his voice cool. That was something. Ethan said, his eyes on me. What you did up there? She's furious. Good. Liam said. Ethan shifted his weight. Look, I shouldn't be here, but she's not going to let this go. The scholarship thing? It's a cover. For what? I asked. He glanced around, lowering his voice. She's digging hard into you, Nava, not just bar photos. She's hired someone. She's looking for, I don't know, anything. Loans, old boyfriends, family stuff. She's planning a bigger reveal. Something to make the bar photo look like a birthday card. Why are you telling us this? Liam asked, suspicion hardening his voice. Ethan looked at his brother, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something like defiance. Because I'm tired of being her puppet. Because what she did to you tonight. He nodded at me. That was cruel, and it's only the beginning. And because he swallowed. She's not just coming for you, Liam. She's planning something. For Dad. Something with the trust funds. I overheard her on the phone. She was talking about consolidating assets and protecting the family from instability. I think she's moving money. A lot of it. Liam and I exchanged a look. This was new. This was bigger than social sabotage. What did you hear? Exactly? I pressed. Just fragments. She was in her study. She said, once Daniel sees the full picture of what he's welcoming into this family, he'll agree. The assets need to be secured before the wedding. I've already started the process with the Cayman accounts. Ethan's voice was a shaky whisper. I don't know what it means, but it sounded final. Cayman accounts, the offshore haven I'd been searching. She was preparing for a divorce, or worse, to declare Liam unfit and have Daniel shift control of everything to her and Ethan. She was planning an endgame. You need proof, Ethan, I said quietly. Dates, account numbers, anything. He looked terrified. If she finds out, she's going to destroy your brother and take everything, including your father's legacy. Is that what you want? He shook his head, a quick, desperate motion. No, but she's my mother, and Liam is your brother. I said, my voice softening. You came to us. That means something. He took a deep, shaky breath. I'll see what I can find. There's a safe in her dressing room, behind the Van Gogh reproduction. I don't know the combination. We'll figure that out. Liam said, his tone a fraction warmer. Thank you, Ethan. Ethan just nodded, a ghost of a boy, and disappeared back into the shadows. In the car home, Liam was silent for a long time. Do you believe him? He finally asked. I believe he's scared, I said, and I believe he's telling the truth. It fits. The social attack didn't work. So she's escalating to the money. The one thing she really cares about. The Cayman accounts. Liam muttered. That's where the shell company money went. It's not just a siphon. It's a war chest. She's preparing to make her move. And we need to move first. I said, the adrenaline of the night hardening into resolve. We have the tech vantage trap set. We have Ethan. Maybe. We have the shell company link. It's not enough. We need the combination to that safe. We need the Cayman account numbers. Liam looked at me, the city lights playing across his face. How do we get into a safe in my father's penthouse? I smiled, a plan clicking into place. We don't. We get someone else to. Who? Your father. He stared at me. What? She's planning to move money. To secure assets because of me. Because I'm an unstable influence. We need to plant the idea in your dad's head that she's the one acting erratically. That she's the risk. We make him doubt her. And then, we give him a reason to look for himself. How? The gala. I said, her little, polishing diamond speech. It was a public performance. But it was also a message to him. See how noble I am. Forgiving this girl, we flip it. You go to your dad. Tomorrow, you tell him you're worried about her. That her obsession with me, with controlling our lives, is becoming unhealthy. That her public generosity feels manic, like she's trying too hard to cover something. You mention the strange financial questions Arthur Brantley raised. You don't accuse. You express concern. Liam was following now, his eyes sharp. I make it about her well-being, her judgment. Exactly. You're the loving son, worried about his stepmother's mental state. And then, you casually mention that Ethan said something odd about her being on the phone late at night, talking about moving money, sounding paranoid. You brush it off as Ethan being imaginative, but it plants the seed. And if Dad suspicious gets the better of him, he might look in that safe. He knows the combination to everything in that house. I said, if he gets suspicious, he'll look, and if he finds what we think he'll find, then the game is over. Liam finished, a grim satisfaction in his voice. The car pulled up to our building. The gala was behind us, the glittering, vicious masquerade. The real war was just beginning. We weren't just defending anymore. We weren't just laying traps. We were launching the assault. And the battlefield was the mind of the one man Victoria had always controlled completely, Daniel Anderson. The 2 months after the gala were a study in controlled tension. The digital leash around Victoria's neck was tightening, one data point at a time. Liam played the concerned son to perfection. He'd taken his father to lunch, painting a picture of a Victoria who was obsessive, paranoid about Nova, and making strange, unilateral financial decisions out of an abundance of caution. He'd framed it as worry, not accusation. Daniel had been dismissive at first. Your mother is under stress. She's protective, Dad, but the seed was planted. We saw it in the slight hesitation in his eyes when Victoria mentioned portfolio reallocation at a family dinner. Meanwhile, the shell company map grew. Ethelred Holdings had cousins, 2 more Delaware LLCs and 1 in the Caymans, all linked to overinflated vendor contracts on Anderson projects, managed by Victoria's loyalists. The money trail disappeared into the Caribbean, but the pattern was clear. We had the arrows pointing to the void. We just needed the bank statements at the other end to complete the circuit. The USB flash drive Ethan had given us was the key. It contained not just proof of the embezzlement framing, but something more valuable, a video file, grainy, from a hidden nanny cam in Victoria's home office. It showed her dictating the forged documents to a nervous-looking man she called the specialist. Her voice was cold, instructional. The transfers need to mirror Liam's signing authority, but the timing must be backdated before his promotion. The board must believe he's been skimming for months, building his own war chest with that girl's encouragement. It was a smoking gun, but we couldn't use it yet. Ethan had risked everything to get it. If we moved now, she'd know he was the source. We needed her to overreach. We needed her to pull the trigger on her own plan in a way that couldn't be traced back to Ethan's leak. So we built a better trap. We fed the beast. Liam, with a convincing display of stressed carelessness, left his work laptop unattended during a weekend at his father's Hamptons house. The files on it were masterpieces of forgery, forged by us. Fake bank statements showing transfers from a dummy account with his name to an offshore number. Fake encrypted emails to a fictional financial advisor discussing asset protection, prenuptial agreements. The dummy account was real enough to pass a cursory look, but the digital breadcrumbs led to a server we controlled. The offshore number was one digit off from the actual Cayman account we suspected was hers. We then made sure Victoria's most trusted spy, her longtime, terrifyingly efficient assistant, Gloria, saw an accidental email alert from the company's internal audit software, flagging anomalous activity on Liam's corporate credit account. The activity was a dummy charge we'd inserted for a $25,000 wire transfer fee to the Caymans. The bait was laid, a laptop with evidence, and a system alert hinting the company was already sniffing around. She'd have to move fast. She took it, hook, line, and sinker. 2 days later, on a Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Liam, sent to our encrypted channel. It's happening. Gloria just found the laptop. Dad's called an emergency executive meeting. 11 a.m. My office. Showtime. We had a feed. Liam had planted a tiny camera in a smoke detector in his office after the gala. Paranoia was our new normal. I watched from my laptop in our downtown apartment. My heart a cold. Hard drum in my chest. At 11:03, the door to Liam's corner office burst open. Not a knock. A violation. Daniel entered first, his face a thundercloud of disbelief and fury. Victoria was right behind him, her expression a perfect mask of devastated horror. Gloria lingered in the doorway, clutching the laptop like a holy relic. Liam. Daniel's voice was low. Dangerous. What the hell is going on? Liam looked up from his desk, the picture of confused innocence. Dad, what's wrong? What's this about? Victoria stepped forward, a tear already tracing down her cheek. Oh, Liam, how could you? Her voice broke. After everything, your father's trust. I don't know what you're talking about. Victoria, don't, Daniel roared, slamming his hand on the desk. Don't you dare lie to me. Gloria found this. He gestured to the laptop. Left out. Emails. Transfers. To the Cayman Islands. 50,000. 100. 200,000. What were you thinking? Is it for her? Is Nova in on this? Liam stood, his face paling convincingly. What transfers? What emails? I haven't sent anything to the Caymans. Let me see that. It's too late for that. Victoria interjected, her voice trembling with faux grief. Daniel, the internal audit flag, it's all here. It's systematic. He's been diverting funds for months, building a nest egg, probably to leave the company. Leave us with that girl. She turned agonized eyes to Daniel. I didn't want to believe it. I defended him. After the gala, after all his hostility, I still defended him. But this, it's incontrovertible. Daniel looked at his son, and the betrayal in his eyes was real, agonizing. Is it true? Son? My God. Liam, just tell me it's not true. Liam held his father's gaze, and for a moment, I saw real pain flash across his face. Pain at the manipulation, at his father being used as a weapon. It's not true. Dad, none of it. I'm being set up. Victoria let out a choked sob. Set up? By who? Who would do such a thing? The evidence is on your computer, in your files. I wanted so badly for you to be the man your father believed you were. But you're just a thief and a liar. She turned to Daniel, placing a pleading hand on his arm. We have to call the board. We have to call security. And the police. before he moves more, before he runs. This was it, the moment she'd worked toward for 20 years. Public disgrace, criminal charges, disinheritance, all delivered by the father's own hand. Liam didn't look at her. He kept his eyes locked on Daniel. Dad, before you call anyone, ask her one question. Daniel, torn, furious, shook his head. What question could possibly matter? Ask her. Liam said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. About Ethelred Holdings and its sister companies, Sable Investments and Cornelis Limited. Ask her about the specialty landscaping consultation fees. Ask her about Carl Resnick. Ask her where that money really went. Victoria's face went bone white. The performative tears stopped instantly. What nonsense is this? Daniel, he's trying to confuse the issue, to distract from his own crimes. And ask her. Liam continued, as if she hadn't spoken, for the account statements for Cayman National Bank. Account number 8874 to 2291. The one that's one digit different from the one she just planted on my laptop. The silence in the office was absolute. Daniel's head swiveled slowly from his son to his wife. Victoria, what is he talking about? He's lying. He's desperate. Her voice was a sharp, brittle thing now. The mask was cracking, showing the panic beneath. He's fabricated this whole story to cover his tracks. Liam reached for his desk phone, pressed a button. Arthur, you can come in now. The door opened again. Arthur Brantley walked in, his face grim. He held a tablet. Daniel, he said, with a curt nod. Victoria, I've been conducting a quiet review at Liam's request. After some anomalies came to light during the TechVantage discussion. Arthur, this is a family matter. Victoria snapped, her composure shredding. It's a corporate matter, Brantley corrected coolly, involving the misappropriation of company funds through shell entities. He handed the tablet to Daniel. On it was a concise dossier, the LLC formations, the payment flows, the links to Victoria's past investment, the profile of Carl Resnick. The money from these overpayments totals approximately $1.7 million over 4 years. It trails to the Caymans. We've subpoenaed the records for account 8874 to 2291. They're in the name of Victoria Hawthorne, not Anderson. Hawthorne, Daniel scrolled, his face aging with every swipe. He looked at his wife. Victoria, explain this. It's a separate investment portfolio. For the family. For Ethan. I was protecting our assets. The lies were tumbling out, clumsy and frantic. By stealing from the company? Daniel's voice was hollow with disbelief. It's not stealing. It's reallocation. You don't understand the pressures. Daniel, the risks he brings. She pointed a shaking finger at Liam. With his reckless ideas. That grasping girl. I was securing our future. Your future. By framing me for embezzlement? Liam asked softly. He walked to his computer, typed a command. The large screen on his office wall flickered to life. You wanted evidence. Dad, here it is. He played the video from the U-Bahn. The grainy footage filled the screen. Victoria's voice, clear and cold, dictating the forgeries. The transfers need to mirror Liam's signing authority. We watched, in real time, as the blood drained from Victoria's face in the office, a mirror of the woman on the screen. We watched Daniel's hand rise to his mouth, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrific comprehension. The video ended. The office was a tomb. Victoria stared at the blank screen, then at her husband's shattered face. Something in her snapped. The pretense, the control, the decades of careful performance evaporated, leaving only raw, snarling hatred. You stupid old man, she hissed, the words dripping with venom. Daniel flinched, as if struck. You blind, sentimental fool. Yes, I did it. I've been doing it for years. Because this family, she spat the word, It was never mine. It was always his. She glared at Liam. The precious heir, the ghost of his simpering. Dead mother in the room, every single day. I gave you everything. I gave you a beautiful home, a pristine reputation, a son who actually respects you. And you never saw me. You only ever saw her absence. Daniel was backing away from her, stumbling, his hand groping for the desk for support. Victoria, my God, all this time, all this time, she shrieked, a harpy unleashed. I made you. I made this life. And I was supposed to stand by and watch him hand it all to some sharp-elbowed social climbing bitch. Her wild eyes found the camera in the smoke detector, as if she could feel my gaze. I tried to spare you. Daniel, I tried to make you see what he is. What shays. But you're too weak. Too stupid. She turned her fury back on Liam. You think you've won? You haven't. I have copies of everything. Emails. Photos. I'll leak it all. Your little gold diggers, sordid past. Your mental health struggles after your precious Chloe died. Oh yes, I have the receipts. I'll burn this whole fucking empire to the ground before I let you have it. That's enough. The new voice was quiet, but it cut through her tirade. Ethan stood in the doorway. He looked older, his face set in grim lines. In his hand was a small, locked metal box. Ethan, sweetheart, Victoria's voice shifted, trying to find the maternal tone, but it came out as a grotesque parody. Don't, he said. He walked to his father, avoiding her eyes. Dad, the combination to the safe behind the Van Gogh is Mom's birthday. Reverse order. The paper files are in here. He handed Daniel the box. The digital keys are on a drive inside. For the accounts. The real ones. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. Victoria stared at her son as if he'd plunged a knife into her chest. The betrayal was absolute, and for a second, she looked not evil, but utterly, profoundly broken. Then the brokenness twisted back into rage. You pathetic traitor. After everything I did for you, you did it for you. Mother, Ethan said, his voice trembling but clear. Always for you. Daniel was holding the box, looking from his raving wife to his shattered son to his resolute elder son. The world he knew had disintegrated in 10 minutes. Security, he whispered, then cleared his throat, a terrible authority returning. Gloria, call security and have my car brought around. Mrs. Anderson is leaving the premises. She is not to re-enter any Anderson property. Her access is revoked. All of it. Victoria laughed. A high, ragged sound. You can't do this to me. I am this family. I am. But she was already being guided out by a stone-faced Gloria and a security guard who had appeared at the door. Her screams, curses, threats, vile promises echoed down the executive hallway until a door slammed shut, cutting them off. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Daniel's ragged breathing. He looked at Liam, his eyes full of a pain too deep for words. I didn't know. I swear to you. Son, I didn't know. Liam just nodded, the fight gone out of him, leaving exhaustion. I know. Dad. Arthur Brantley cleared his throat. Daniel, the board will need a full briefing, and the authorities will need to be involved. The scale of this, I know. Arthur, just give me an hour. Please. Brantley nodded, gave Liam a look of unexpected respect, and left, closing the door softly. Daniel sank into a chair, the metal box on his lap. He looked ancient. All these years, I was so blind. She was good. Dad, Liam said, no malice in his voice. Just fact. She was really good. The fallout was swift and brutal. Victoria was arrested the next day on charges of fraud, forgery, and attempted framing. Bail was set astronomically high. Daniel, shell-shocked, paid it on the condition she checked into a psychiatric facility for evaluation. A calculated move. Part guilt, part a desire to contain the scandal. The board, led by Brantley, voted to install Liam as interim CEO while Daniel took a leave of absence to deal with personal matters. The company's stock dipped, then stabilized on news of the successful uncovering of internal fraud and the swift leadership transition. We'd won. The fortress had fallen, but walking through the rubble felt hollow. Daniel was a ghost. Ethan had moved to a friend's couch, ashamed and adrift. Liam carried the weight of a broken family and a company in his hands, and I kept looking over my shoulder. Victoria's final scream in the office hadn't been an empty threat. It was a promise. It was a Thursday night, a week after the confrontation. Late, I'd been working at Sterling, finalizing a project unrelated to the Anderson chaos. I needed the normalcy. The parking garage under my office building was nearly empty, my heels echoing on the concrete. My mind was on Liam, on the haunted look in his eyes that victory hadn't erased. I didn't hear the footsteps. I felt the presence a second too late at a shift in the air, a shadow moving fast from behind a support column, an arm hooked around my throat from behind, choking off my scream. I kicked, my heel connecting with a shin, a grunt of pain. The grip loosened for a millisecond. I drove my elbow back, connecting with something soft, a curse, hot and foul in my ear. I broke free, stumbling, and ran, not for the elevator, for the stairwell door. 20 feet away, my purse and phone clattered to the ground. I didn't stop. The door was heavy. I slammed into it, yanking it open. I flung myself into the stairwell. The door, starting to swing, shut behind me. A hand shot through the closing gap, grabbing for me. I turned, scrambling backward up the first flight. The door burst open. The figure was dressed in black, a ski mask obscuring their face. They moved with a terrifying, single-minded purpose. They didn't speak. They just came for me. I turned and ran up, my lungs burning. The garage was P2. I needed to get to P1, to the lobby level. I heard their footsteps, close, too close, at the landing for P1. I realized my mistake. The door to P1 was chained shut, a thick padlock glinting in the emergency light. A maintenance thing, a dead end. I was trapped in the stairwell between floors. I spun around. They were on the landing below, blocking my retreat. They started up the steps. Slow now, confident. I backed against the locked door, my hands scrabbling at the cold metal, finding nothing. They were 2 steps away. I did the only thing I could. I launched myself at them. Not away. A move from a self-defense class a lifetime ago. I went low, aiming for the knees, trying to tackle. It was clumsy. They sidestepped, and a fist connected with the side of my head. Lights exploded behind my eyes. I fell, rolling, my back hitting the railing. I saw the maintenance elevator across the landing at a small, metal cage used for moving equipment. Its gate was open, a dark, square hole in the wall. The figure loomed over me. They weren't trying to hit me again. They were reaching for me, to grab, to throw me down the stairwell. No, toward the open elevator shaft. A new, primal terror shot through me. I kicked out wildly, connecting with their knee. They staggered. In that second, I scrambled on my hands and knees toward the elevator, not away from it. It was the only move they wouldn't expect. I reached the gate. Instead of trying to get in, I grabbed the vertical metal bars and used them to haul myself to my feet, putting the open shaft at my back. The figure recovered, lunging, their hands shoved hard against my shoulders. My feet slipped on the smooth concrete ledge. My grip on the bars was the only thing keeping me from falling backward into the black void. I felt my fingers slipping, one by one. Their masked face was inches from mine. I could smell cheap soap and adrenaline. With a final, desperate scream, I let go with one hand and clawed at their face. Not the mask, but lower. My fingers caught on something hard and cold around their neck, a chain. I yanked with all the strength I had left. The chain snapped. A small, metallic object flew into the air. clattering onto the landing as I finally lost my grip on the bar. I fell, but not down the shaft. I fell sideways onto the hard concrete of the landing. The breath knocked out of me. The figure above me hesitated, a hand going to their now bare neck. They looked at the object on the ground, then at me, a low growl of fury escaping them. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have heard the commotion, seen me run in. With a final, hate-filled look, they turned and fled back down the stairs, disappearing into the gloom of P2. I lay there, gasping, pain radiating from my head, my shoulder, my ribs. The sirens got louder. I turned my head, my vision swimming. There, a few feet away, glinting under the harsh fluorescent light, was what I had torn from their neck. A pendant, a small, intricate, platinum family crest, a hawk holding a thorny branch. I knew that crest. I'd seen it in a portrait in the Fifth Avenue apartment. The Hawthorne family crest. Victoria's. From before she was an Anderson. She hadn't just sent a minion. She'd come herself. The emergency room was a blur of sterile light and urgent voices. My shoulder was wrenched. My ribs a symphony of pain with every breath. And a deep, throbbing ache had taken root behind my left eye. But I clutched the pendant in my uninjured hand, so tightly the sharp edges of the platinum hawk imprinted themselves on my palm. Liam arrived like a storm, his face pale with a fear I'd never seen before. He was at my side in an instant, his hand hovering, afraid to touch. Nova. My God. The police said an assault. A fall. Not a fall. I said, my voice raw. I opened my hand. The Hawthorne crest lay in my palm, smudged with my blood and concrete dust. She pushed me toward the elevator shaft. I grabbed this. He stared at the pendant, recognition and then pure, unadulterated fury transforming his face. That's hers. She never takes it off. Her father gave it to her. He looked at me, his eyes blazing. She tried to kill you. She failed. I closed my fingers over the metal. Now we finish it. The police were skeptical at first. A masked assailant, a family heirloom as the only evidence. It was my word dot and the security footage from the garage entrance, which showed a figure in black entering, and later running out. But the mask and bulky clothes made identification impossible. Liam called his father. Daniel arrived at the precinct looking 10 years older. The events of the last week carved into his face. He listened, stone-faced, as I recounted the attack, showed the pendant. It's not possible, he whispered, but the conviction was gone from his voice. It was a hollow reflex. She's under psychiatric evaluation. She's under guard. She posted bail. Daniel, Liam said, his voice cold, your bail. The conditions are a joke, and you know it. She has resources, and she's desperate. I placed the pendant on the detective's desk. Run the chain for DNA. My skin is under my nails from where I scratched her. Test it. It'll match hers. And then get a warrant. For her person, her current residence, her safety deposit boxes. You'll find the clothes. And you'll find the rest of her plans. The detective, a weary-looking man named Rossi, picked up the pendant with a gloved hand. This is a serious accusation against a prominent woman. It's attempted murder, I said flatly, and the prominent woman is already under indictment for fraud. Check with the DA's office. Talk to Arthur Brantley at Anderson Group. The narrative is already cracking. Help us break it the rest of the way. The DNA match came back in 48 hours. A partial, but enough, combined with the unique pendant for an arrest warrant. They found her at a rented house in Greenwich, paid for in cash from one of the Cayman accounts. In the trash, still reeking of bleach, but with traces of my blood in the fibers, was the black clothing. In a locked briefcase, they found the insurance she'd screamed about. A meticulously compiled dossier on me, every boyfriend, every grade, every student loan document, and on Liam, including forged letters from a therapist discussing detachment issues and latent anger following Chloe's death. There were also printed bank records, not the fake ones, but the real Cayman statements, showing millions moved from the Anderson family trusts over the years. But the most damning item was a burner phone. On it, a single outgoing call to a number registered to a known private investigator with a reputation for aggressive tactics. The call was placed 20 minutes before my attack. They arrested her in a silk dressing gown, her hair perfect. She didn't scream this time. She just looked at the officers with icy contempt and said, "I want to speak to my lawyer." And my husband, Daniel, refused the visit. The trial was swift and brutal. The financial fraud case was a slam dunk. The attempted murder charge was trickier, but the physical evidence dependent with her DNA. My skin under her nails, they'd found microscopic traces under the nails of her right hand, which she'd missed in her bleach scrub. The bleach-soaked clothes. The burner phone record painted an undeniable picture. Her defense argued insanity, temporary breakdown under pressure. The prosecution played the video of her coolly dictating the forgeries. They entered the dossier she'd compiled. They put Ethan on the stand. Watching him was the hardest part. He looked at his mother, who stared blankly ahead, and confirmed everything. The safe, the money moves, her lifelong campaign against Liam. When the DA asked if he believed his mother was capable of violence, he paused, looked at me in the gallery, and said, "I believe she's capable of anything to protect the world she built, even if that world was a lie." Victoria was sentenced to 12 to 25 years for fraud, forgery, and attempted murder, to be served consecutively as they led her away in handcuffs. She finally looked at Daniel, not with pleading, but with a chilling, unwavering hatred. "You're weak, old man," she said, her voice clear in the silent courtroom, "and you've let a viper into your nest. This isn't over. The game never ends. Daniel, I have friends. I have eyes everywhere." It was an empty threat from a caged animal, but it made Daniel flinch. The weeks that followed were for cleaning wounds, both visible and invisible. Daniel resigned as chairman of the board, officially passing the title and controlling shares to Liam. He moved out of the Fifth Avenue apartment, saying the ghosts were too loud, and bought a smaller place uptown. He started therapy. He began, haltingly, to rebuild a relationship with Liam based on something other than guilt and Victoria's filtered narratives. Ethan took a job with a tech startup in San Francisco, as far from the Anderson world as he could get. He emailed me once, a simple message, "Thank you for not giving up on him, or on me. I'm sorry for everything." I wrote back, "No apologies, just go build your own thing." Liam buried himself in the company. The clean, hard logic of business, a refuge from the emotional wreckage. We were CEOs of our respective silences for a while, orbiting each other carefully in the loft. Both of us jumpy at unexpected sounds. The final blow came a month after the trial. A series of investigative articles hit the Wall Street Journal and a prominent business blog. Anderson family feud. The dark truth behind the gilded facade. They were brutal, detailing Victoria's schemes, the financial siphoning, even hinting at the assault. The source was anonymous, but the details were too precise, too insider. The stock tanked. Liam was in a fury, pacing the living room. She said she had friends, eyes everywhere. This is it. She's burning it all down from prison. I read the articles on my tablet, a cold clarity cutting through the panic. "No," I said slowly. "This isn't her style. This is cleaner, more strategic. This isn't a wildfire. It's a controlled burn. Look at the quotes. They're all from sources close to the board. The narrative isn't Anderson Group is corrupt. It's Anderson Group, under new leadership, is courageously rooting out historic corruption. They're making you the hero who cleaned house." He stopped pacing. "What? The leaks are timed. The details expose Victoria's crimes completely, but they protect the company's core. They make you look strong. This isn't an attack. Liam, it's a hostile takeover of the narrative by someone who wants the stock to dip so they can buy, or who wants to cement your position by making you the only viable savior. Arthur Brantley, we said in unison. I called him. He answered on the second ring. Nova, I wondered if you'd call. The articles. Arthur, that was you. Background guidance only. He said, his voice crisp. The story was going to come out. Scandals always do. The choice was whether it came out as a drip-drip of salacious gossip from Victoria's remaining allies, or as a single, surgical strike that puts the past firmly in the past and positions Liam as the definitive future. I chose the latter. The stock will recover by quarter's end. The board is united behind him. Sometimes, my dear, you must burn the underbrush to save the forest. I relayed the conversation to Liam. He shook his head, a grudging respect on his face. He's a ruthless old bastard. He's on your side. And he's right. The story is told. It's your story now. You just have to write the next chapter. A year later, almost to the day, I held our daughter in the sun-drenched nursery of the new house we'd bought in Brooklyn Heights. The city glittered beyond the window. We'd named her Eleanor, after Liam's mother. A reclaiming. Liam came in, loosening his tie. He'd just come from a triumphant shareholder meeting. The stock was at an all-time high. The TechVantage deal, renegotiated on sensible terms, was a success. He kissed my forehead, then leaned down to brush his lips against the downy hair on Ellie's head. Daniel's downstairs, he said softly. He brought a ridiculous stuffed giraffe. And the final papers. I nodded. The final papers were the official, irrevocable trust documents. Daniel had transferred the bulk of his remaining personal wealth, the wealth Victoria hadn't been able to touch, into a trust for Ellie. His letter of instructions stated it was to provide a foundation untainted by the past, for a future built on better things. It was an apology, an atonement, and a blessing, all in one. Later, after Daniel had left, dabbing his eyes, babbling about how Ellie had my eyes, I sat at my desk. A single, plain white envelope lay there, forwarded by our lawyer. The return address was the correctional facility. Victoria's elegant, looping script spelled my name. I picked it up. I didn't open it. I carried it to the small paper shredder in the corner, a sleek machine we'd bought for disposing of old financial documents. I fed the corner of the envelope into the slot. The machine whirred to life with a quiet, hungry hum. I watched as the paper, and whatever poison it contained, was consumed, cut into 1,000 meaningless, confetti-like strips, falling into the bin below. Liam walked in, saw the last of the paper disappear. He didn't ask what it was. He just came over, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and rested his chin on my shoulder. We looked out the window together, at the lights of the bridges, at the peaceful dark of the river, at our city, to the family we make. He whispered, the old vow warm between us. I leaned back into his solid strength, watching Ellie sleep in her crib, not the one we're given.